is ripping.
My tummy hurts.
Pretty good, right? Bad.
Hey guys, what's going on? Nick with Off the Chart Trading. I'll be in the video for tonight. I think the last video I said Thursday, but this is the real Thursday. Anyway, let's jump into it. First thing I was looking at, it's actually better to probably look at it on a smaller time frame. Apple doing really well, and as the title of the video, I think because Apple is such a big company and everyone has an iPhone, and you know they have their fingers in everything, and they're trying to enter EVs, even though obviously they didn't talk anything about that. But my point is with their services and their streaming, and they're everywhere. So I think there is some truth to so goes Apple, so goes the market, because I think it ultimately will show a strong consumer. And they had a really good quarter. I mean, they did mention supply chain issues, but they were getting better. Now, obviously, Apple being Apple, they have a lot more pull than some of these smaller companies that might end up still quoting and saying, you know, well, supply chain issues, chips, shortages, and so forth. But the fact that even though they were able to overcome that, I think shows some relative strength. Got as high as what, like 168, 169, whatever it was. So pretty decent move. I don't know what the expected move was for Apple. It's probably what, $5 to $7. Fun fact. Two things, maybe this would be, you know, your nugget for this evening. If you guys use TOS, and I'm sure almost every broker has this, you guys can go over here once you go to the option chain and see what the expected move was. And for this week, it's between $8.20. Obviously, that will change throughout the week. But since we had earnings this week, you can see that the expected move was, we'll just round down and say $8, and the implied volatility was about 97%. So how much is it up? What is that, like $7, give or take? Okay, so it's still within the expected move, so nothing too crazy, but I think an $8 move is pretty big. I think it equates to like what, 150 billion in their market cap or something equivalent to that. So pretty decent move overall. And futures are up. They're pulling back a little bit. Out of the corner of my eye, we can take a look at the internals and see how everything looked today. Let me switch. Overall, it was a pretty boring day. I mean, we ended up seeing a little bit of selling halfway through the day. In the afternoon, ended up giving back, and that seems to be the trend. I took 2 trades today, one being Q calls, and I actually got out kind of near the high. I think it was actually around 10 o'clock when I ended up getting out. Even though I was talking about like this is, you know, you have that pull down to the 21, we closed above it, some more selling, and then came back up. So that shows relative strength, but I don't know what it is. This market's just so, you know, everything can look amazing. You can have the best setup. And even though in the last video I did talk about a setup that ended up, you know, falling through and people were able to make a good amount of money, I just got a little, I don't want to say nervous, but just like, I don't know, man, in this market, you just got to take it. You're up 10%, 15%, you're up X amount of money. Just take it and run, because it can literally do a 180. And that's exactly what happened. If it wasn't this candle, if it wasn't this one, it was this one. So, and then sure enough, boom. Actually, I think it was this one I sold up here and then came down to its 21, and we can see how it works. So I was up a couple hundred, and I only made about $100 on it. So not a home run by any means, but I'll take $100 locked in versus being down probably $600-700 down here. The only other trade I did in the room, I think, was a futures trade on one of the flush down, one of these candles somewhere down here. It was mainly just to mess around, but even for micros, I did like a 3 lot or a 4 lot, and I was able to make about $165. So overall decent. I've been pretty consistent, I think, every day this week and Friday. So I think I'm 5 for 5 as far as quick scalps, and it's adding up. I mean, it's been probably a couple thousand over the last 5 days that I've been able to make, kind of offsetting my main account getting hit pretty hard, because as you guys should know by now, I'm big into growth stocks, and geez, just anything that's not, you know, sitting on $200 billion like Apple is just getting, you know, hit hard. And that's the crazy thing about these weights, and that's why I go back to the title of the video is "So Goes Apple, So Goes Market," is because I think Apple makes up 7 or 8% of the S&P, and then you start, you add these 5 stocks, the FANGs take up 30% of the S&P. So most of these bigger names have held up fairly well considering, and that's once again it's showing, the outside of the house looks amazing. They threw up some nice brick, they colored it, it looks amazing, the yard's upkept, and then inside it's just like, freaking crack house. Like, it's just horrible. It smells, it's just bad. And that really sums up. I remember a meme that had it like that the front of the house looked amazing, and then they took a picture from the side and there was nothing. Like, the house was just basically framed, like there was nothing left of it. And that kind of looks, or just picture a car that looks amazing on the outside, and then the engine's like got 500,000 miles on it, and there's no seats. It's just horrible inside. So it's kind of like was it window dressing or paint job, or that type of market where a very few stocks control the overall indexes, because for the most part, even with this pullback, most people probably aren't even aware. If you don't follow trading, you probably think everything's fine, but God forbid you're in, I think, was it 2/3 of so 66%, almost 70% of the stocks in the NASDAQ are I think down 30-40%. If not, they're below they're at 52-week lows, or they're below their 200. I can't remember what it was, but it was like 2/3 are basically being beaten to death. And it's some good companies, like PayPal's down more than half, but obviously I don't want the video to go into how growth stocks have been abused, but I will say I have been averaging down a lot of the favorite names I like, because the mindset you got to have is, well, if you liked it at 10, you got to love it at 5, even if you're down 50%. So, and just have that longer term outlook, and knowing that this could be the steal of the century. It could be better than the 2020 lows on a lot of these names that have just been completely hit. So I'd rather buy a few hundred shares of stuff. I think the 3D printing, the EV cars, the chargers, eVTOLs, the vertical takeoffs, and all that type of stuff. A lot of the like an ARC-G type of idea, as far as like mass and ions, and a lot of those I'm in are down 60, 70, 80% from their highs, and I've been buying them. Obviously most of my averages, I would love to have waited till right now to buy them, but that's not how the markets work. And if you have a longer term idea, then you just average down when you can. But anyway, like I said, we started off pretty good. I was actually kind of shocked, because when we did the webinar last night, we were talking about it. It was obviously today, that was that weird gap down. I don't know if you guys had that on any other indexes, but TOS froze for a little while, because I'm like, you never see gaps in futures, unless obviously it's when the contracts start, 6 p.m. or whatever the case may be, but that was midday. But anyway, last night when we did it, we ended up bleeding. I remember when I started the webinar, it was like, I think we were down like 25 points, and at the end of the webinar, we were down like, I think 70. So I go to bed, and I'm about to go to bed, and I'm like, man, I wouldn't be shocked if I wake up and we're down 120 or something, and then I wake up and we're up 25, 30 points, which was interesting. So this market seems to be doing that overnight's good. I guess try to wheel people in thinking that everything's going to be rainbows and sunshines, and then you halfway through the day not even start beating them. Russell was definitely the weakest out of all of them early on, and that was kind of another indicator. I was like, maybe it's a good idea to close those calls, because there is relative weakness. And granted, there could be divergence where the Russell could be selling off and all of these were going higher. I mean, heck, I think the Dow was basically green even towards the worst part of the day. So sometimes there is a little bit of divergence between the indexes, but most of the time they will follow each other. What else? We did talk about the strong dollar. I mean, look at that move. That's crazy. Obviously punishing gold. Gold's, for you guys that are members know, like, gold's just dead to me. I don't want to trade it. It doesn't matter if the market's crashing, going up. It doesn't matter if inflation's 500%. Gold's at 1,800. I just think that's just a sign that as money is, they're talking about the great wealth, more money's being transferred to millennials and stuff now. I don't know people my age that care about gold. I mean, think of those commercials on CNBC. It's always Jasper McGillicuddy. I love gold. He's sitting on his porch with his hat. I just rock back and forth. And I told my grandson gold's the future. I love gold. It's never anybody in their 30s talking about how cool gold is. And that's a segue into crypto, which is actually doing pretty nice. So I think a lot of money that was going into gold as a hedge and stuff like that is going into digital currencies and stuff. It has to, because this move in gold, it looked like it was finally going to start doing something when we had, the Fed talk and stuff, and just gave it all back. So maybe one day gold's important, but this whole year and a half where you thought you would think gold would be at like over 2,000 and hold it because of inflation and everything. It just hasn't done anything. But anyway, crypto, like I said, coming up nice here. The instant declines, that was another thing too. Noticing that weakness early on, that we weren't, trending higher. We were fading, even though price was going higher. That was another indication for me to potentially pull that. The trend's pretty low. The put call going out at 0.9. That light blue line is the 10-day moving average, and you can kind of see this is going back. What is it? 1 year, right? Yeah. So it's going back a year, and it's the highest level we've had, which is trending at about 0.85 or so. So it's getting up there. A lot of people are short this market. And one thing I want to look at, let me see, go back to here. And obviously it depends on what you own, because today felt pretty bad for me, like I said, being mainly in growth. But from an index perspective and looking at this stuff, we do seem to be trying to, either hammer out a base, whatever term you want to use, because if you look at the 4,300, Monday was the end of the world, and then we rallied and finished green on the day. Today we came down a little bit and then bounced off it. So 4,300 is holding as of right now. That seems to be decent support. And that's why I'm not somebody who really goes by an exact level. Because if you go by exact levels, well then, it's been breached and it's no longer valid. But when I look at it, we haven't had a single close this whole week below 4,300. We've gone below it a couple times, but we're still closing above it. And something as simple as, and like I said, I'm not big into drawing lines and stuff. I can just eyeball it. I can see a massive, flush, and then I can see sideways action. That does not mean that because we're consolidating for this week that we don't end up dropping lower. I'm not saying that's not a possibility, but it doesn't matter if this is the first video you've ever seen on trading. You can notice a difference between, stair stepping lower and then sideways action. So how does this end up unfolding? I don't know. I will say for the short-term traders that have been shorting this market this week, they can't really be that, unless they're shorting the highs and then, still in it. I'm going to say this is more bullish than bearish, just because after this price action, if people don't see, especially traders that have puts that expire next week or, for maybe February or whatever the case may be, if they don't see follow through, they're getting killed by theta and they're not getting that instant gratification. So if somebody else is looking at this with a lot of money and they say, all right, cool, this is the time to buy, we might end up seeing another short rally. Probably nothing like Monday, but it wouldn't be too crazy to think that we can at least come up to the 21 or the 34 up here, back up to maybe 45, 75. The 21 itself is 45. I'm going to round up and just say 45.20. And, that's decent move, especially if we, you catch calls for a couple days. You can make a pretty penny on that. I'd rather personally intraday trade that, because when everything's looking amazing, typically the next day the opposite happens. So we'll play it one day at a time. But as of right now, I think this move overall is more bullish than bearish. And like I said, that doesn't mean to buy calls that expire tomorrow into the close. It's just saying that there is no follow through right now, that the 4,300 area is holding overall. You look at the weekly, you look at the monthly, they don't look good. Obviously we're off the lows. That was because of that Monday getting down to about 4,200. But we'll just have to see. Like I said, it's I haven't spoken to you guys since Pal spoke, but I was expecting a little more market-friendly commentary, I guess you could say, or just, we're not going to overdo it with rate hikes or, whatever the case may be. Like, yes, they're coming. We've already, telegraphed that, but I read an article, they said 6. That's crazy talk. Something like that. I don't know. Just off the cuff, and the market would have rallied. Obviously, it's not his job to focus on this, but I don't care what you say. The stock market and the economy, maybe not 100% correlated, but if the ES dropped by 20%, you would see ripple effects throughout the economy. People not maybe able to retire as quick, or not be able to buy that second house, or be able to buy that car now, or have to rethink certain things, rethink that vacation. It would affect it, So I don't care what he says. I know that's not his mandate or whatever, but I guarantee they look at the markets every single day just to see what's going on. But anyway, just my 2 cents. Look at the profile. I'm looking at the profile in a couple days with you guys. One thing I did mention, and it kind of goes hand in hand with what I was talking about, that 43 level. I think I drew a line right there for the 43. Like, we broke it today, barely. Look at that, only 75 contracts at the lows. So that's really not that bad. And then bounce and then close back into where value was. One thing I was talking about that a regular chart won't show you is you can see, once again, doesn't matter what so if this is your first time looking at market profile, you might have no idea what you're looking at. But just look at the red areas. and notice how they are progressively going higher up till today. Today kind of came back into balance, but we were building up higher where most of the time in volume we're moving higher from the previous days. Once again, that one time framing higher from here to here to here. We didn't technically take out yesterday's lows. So that is also technically 4 days of one time framing higher. So that is something to pay attention to. And like I said, that's also bullish. So even though the candles might look crazy and you can't get a good direction, you can kind of see where all the volume and time is. And, we aren't down here, we're not down here. And it doesn't mean that we can't go down there. It's just, when there is a trend reversal or, either overbought or oversold or whatever the case may be, you do end up looking for some type of pullback. If you're up 7-8 days in a row, it's just common sense that there's going to be a red day right around the corner. You're down every single day for 2 weeks and it's the worst January of all time or whatever, you would expect a pullback, meaning it could potentially going higher. So we'll just have to see how that goes. But right now we are kind of just staying within this range for the entire week. It's been a violent week. You're talking 100 points. From the lows to the highs sometimes. Like I said, when I went to bed, we were down almost 75 points. I wake up, we're up 25. That's a 100-point move. So just something to be aware of. But it's really just hurry up and wait at this moment. I think it could be rocky because I was talking about in the room yesterday and the day before that. I don't even know if I mentioned on Tuesday's video that, what catalyst do we have right now other than earnings? And Apple, that's good. Obviously, it could have been bad. If Apple's earnings were bad, we'd probably be down. The NQ would probably be down 200 points. ES would probably be down 50, 60. So the fact that Apple's report was good, we're seeing some follow through overnight right now. We'll just have to see how we open and if it's maintained. But this kind of, once again, it's taking everything. And I talked about it in the last video. Market sense is taking all that information and looking at charts, not just from a technical standpoint, but also the fundamental. It's kind of like that yin and yang. It's matching it. That's why I'm kind of more of a laid back approach. I don't draw exact lines. I don't draw channels. I don't go strictly off, oh, they sold more iPhones, so the economy's better. But I do take all that information and try to filter it in. So if I see balance, if I see price technically going higher, not taking out the previous, close, tomorrow might be a bullish day, especially if you're short. Let's just say we end up balancing somewhere up here. I wouldn't want to be short over the weekend. It's the same opposite as I wouldn't want to be long, for margin call Monday, which is exactly what happened. So the kind of the opposite happened. So it'll be interesting tomorrow. I don't want to tell you, I'll go long at the open and blah, 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 blah. But we'll definitely be monitoring that in the room, especially if this move, that snowball higher, and technically snowball will go down, but whatever, a balloon higher, whatever, you want to say for something to potentially go higher. It's looking like the futures are doing decent right now. So we'll see how they open and if it's maintained. But that early up for the first hour or two and then fade into the close has been the trend lately. So we'll just have to see how it goes. As always, hit us up on offthecharttrading.com. If not, make sure you're in the Facebook group with us. And as always, hopefully this was helpful, and I will see you guys at the next one. Have a good weekend, guys.